Hello everyone, I'm Austin at Base Nursery, and today we're talking tomatoes. So, you've probably already selected your tomatoes and you got them home. Now, you got to figure out what to do with them. So the first step is spacing. A good general rule of thumb is to space them about 18 to 24 inches apart. This allows for good airflow between the plants because, as you know, tomatoes can get very bushy and big. So, like I said, about 2 foot apart is good spacing. Next, we need to talk about irrigation. Generally here in Middle Tennessee, if you plant them in the actual ground, irrigation is not as crucial as you would think. A lot of times tomatoes can find their own moisture level down deep into the soil and they don't need added water. Now during periods of drought you need to keep an eye on them. Don't let them turn wilty on you, they'll be less productive. But in the ground much less water is needed than you would think. Now a lot of people are growing tomatoes in containers or in raised beds now. With those we need to watch our tomatoes a little more closely. Water can be lost through that. Generally we're using a more porous soil and the water is able to move through them much more frequently. So we need to keep an eye on those and keep them adequately moist but not just soaked all the time. We want them to actually grow and find their own water deep down within that soil. After that, we need to talk about trellising. There's no perfect way to trellis. There's all sorts. There's probably 20 different ways you can trellis up tomato. The biggest key is to get them up off the ground. The way you're going to do that is with either a single stem right next to the plant and just tie them up as you go. You can use cages, which are very common. If you have them in rows, a lot of times using like a cattle fencing, putting them up, up behind your tomatoes and then just twining them up as you go and as they grow. All sorts of methods for trellising. Don't get too worried about it. Just get them up off the ground and you'll have much better success. Okay, now a lot of people are choosing to plant their tomatoes in containers, so I'm going to teach you how to do that. First step is choosing a container with the right size. You want to go with a pretty big size. This is a gallon size tomato. This is a leftover tomato plant we've had for a while here at the nursery. As you can tell, it's getting very leggy, kind of gangly. It's ready to get up and get planted. So, got a container here. This is about a 7-gallon pot. I would not go any smaller than this. This is about as small as you need to go. Bigger is better. So, now we've got some dirt here. This is our soil product that we call Proganics O. It's an outdoor mix that's just excellent for growing plants. You can buy that here all the time. We're going to fill this up a little bit, get some in the bottom. We're going to start there. We'll bring this over here. Now, planting a tomato. Common questions we get asked a lot is, how deep do I bury my tomatoes, or can I bury them at all? Question is simply, or answer is simply yes. Take this out of the pot. See, it's got a pretty hefty root system. I'm going to break that up a little bit. Now, tomatoes root from all up this stem. If any of this stem touches soil contact, makes soil contact, it will root. So we can take this plant and we can put it all the way down in there. And then, just let that lay for a minute. And then we can start filling up this dirt all the way around it. That'll cut down on some of that legginess of that plant. It'll get more of it in the dirt and it's going to give us more of an active root system. So now we just fill in around it. Make sure you're pressing it down as you go. This is good practice with more or less any containerized plant. You really want to get the edges packed in there so whenever you water, it doesn't just run down the sides and just run all the way. So as you go, pack it down, especially on the edges. Let's get some more soil. See, we're just burying it up around this stem. We want to leave about 2 to 3 inches at the very top. I'm going to press around this stem nice and good. Keep the edges pressed nice and tight. Alright, so that's about where we want to be. Right there, pressed in tight. Obviously we're going to water soon. I'm going to not do that step at the moment because we've got to trellis this thing. So, I've got my stake here. Just a nice little wooden stake. Nothing fancy, doesn't have to be fancy, whatever you got. We'll press that in all the way to the bottom. Make sure we press that dirt around it so it stays tight. And then I'm going to use something. So I wanted to show you a couple different products. This is more or less just a twist tie right here. Now you can use this when they're young, it's fine. What I want you to know is you don't want to use this later, keep this on this plant for the whole season. As this stem swells, it's going to want to, this wire tends to be a little harsh on it and it might make cuts in the stem. We want to avoid that. I prefer using this product right here. It's just, there's a metal wire that runs through this, but this green part is rubber, so it's very, very soft, and it's easy to work with. So, got some pruners, they cut pretty easily. Cut a little piece off. And this tomato is pretty wonky, so it's going to be hard for me to get this thing perfectly straight, but that doesn't matter. As a tomato grows, you're going to see. I'm just going to keep it at this angle at the moment, just to get this part straight. I'm gonna work this around it, tie it off. Nothing fancy, not too tight, not too loose. As this grows, I might be able to get that up if you really want a perfectly straight plant. Like I said, it's not necessarily needed. What I need for this plant is to grow. So we're gonna start seeing stem growth from probably here. It's gonna go up, this is gonna wanna go up, and then we'll see where we're at, and later on we'll trellis even higher. So, got our tomato planted. All we need to do now is water. What I want you to do is take your hose and fill this pot of water to the top at least 3 to 4 to 5 different times. So you fill it up, you watch it drain. Fill it up, watch it drain. This is the initial watering. It's the most crucial. After that, you can water less, mainly just as needed. But like I said, the initial one is the one that we need to make sure we get right to get this plant to grow. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you learned a little something about tomatoes today. If you ever need anything, soil products, plants, or expertise, you can come out and chat with us at Bates Nursery. We're on Whites Creek Pike in Nashville, Tennessee.